This is gonna be fun.
What's going on, guys? It's Entertainment Critic here, and welcome to my review of How to Train Your Dragon 3, or How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World as it's known in theaters. So, I saw this movie, I think, last Sunday, so it's been a while since it's been a good time since I've seen it. I've given myself some time to process things that happened in the film so I can give a better overall opinion of what I thought of the film. I am hoping I can see it again at some point in the future before its theatrical run stops, but from what I got gathered most of what I need to know from my first viewing, so I felt that I should may as well do a review for it, because this series has been with me for actually quite a long time. Give you a quick brief history of my involvement in this franchise. So I think her name is Cressida Cowell. I probably just butchered her name, but I read the books that she published way back when they were first coming out. I didn't think I read the first one when it first came out, but I remember from like when I was 8 years old, I read the first book, and then I read them all from then on forward. And then 2010, the first film came out. I saw that in cinemas, and then 2014, How to Train Your Dragon 2 came out, and I also saw that in cinemas. So it's been nearly about 11 years that I've been like kind of say a fan of this franchise, so it's pretty crazy to say that I've been waiting for this film for a long time. And the question is, did this film deliver for me? And I'd say yes, it did, in so many ways. Like I don't know if I can give you a fault for this film going through this review. It might just be me praising this movie, and if it is, then so be it. So, plot of the story. Hiccup, and it starts off with a raid on Catcher Trapper's ship, and Hiccup and the gang all go to the ship and they free the dragons. And as they try and do the raid, it goes wrong, and it starts off with a stealth mission, and it goes wrong. So they all don't have to all escape off of the ship, and they didn't realize they left a dragon behind. And that is I want to call her a femme fatale, because that's kind of what she is. The definition of a femme fatale is basically, in a broad sense of the term, it's like a female character who leads the male protagonist into danger and uses like different female qualities to lure that person into like danger, essentially. And while you could say the Light Fury throughout the film wasn't really doing it intentionally, so I don't believe that she was under the control of Gremmel for any point in this film. Yes, the Gremmel was using her because he knew that Night Furies breed for life. So by releasing her to Toothless, it is inevitable that they are going to want to breed to create more offspring so that the species can survive. So it was more her natural instinct to be drawn towards Toothless than her helping Gremmel. Gremmel just used what he knew about Night Furies, because obviously it was established that Gremmel had hunted down every single Night Fury except for these two. So obviously he kept the Night Fury as kind of like a pet trophy type thing. And then he found about Toothless, and he went on a mission to try and kill Toothless. So yeah, we get back to Berk, and we find out they made the Dragon Utopia, basically, and they've got tons of dragons there now. It's been a year since the Alpha, the Bewilderbeast, attacked in the second film, and they've rebuilt it completely, even though it does quite get destroyed a decent amount in this, just in the opening scene alone. And Gremmel ends up showing up out of nowhere in Hiccup's house, and he takes out Toothless. And I love this scene for what they do with it. It's a constant back and forth with who has power in the situation, because at first you think Gremmel has the power in the situation because he's shown up in his Hiccup's house out of nowhere. He was sat in his father's chair, and he took out Toothless without any problems. and then Hiccup ambushes him, and all of them come in, and he thinks he has the upper hand. He's like saying, "You come into my house, you sit where my father sat, you tried to take my dragon," and then Grimmels turns the tables again, and he actually has the power in the situation, and he launches an attack with, I don't know what they called his dragons, but yeah, he launches an attack with his dragons, and they all come down and they destroy Hiccup's house, and this sends the Vikings into a complete panic because if Gremlin knows where they are and he's coming for the dragons, then he's going to be back again, and they don't know if they should stay or not. And it had been teased up to that point that Hiccup had actually wanted to leave Berk, even though he knows his father left him to defend Berk. He feels that the Berk isn't the place. It's kind of like what Thor says at the end of Thor Ragnarok, that Asgard isn't the place, it's the people. And that's what Hiccup says here. He says that Berk isn't the place, it's the people that make up Berk and make Berk what it is. So they all decide to pack up and leave Berk. And they do that. And also, whilst this was happening, or slightly before this was happening, Toothless runs off into the woods. And this is where we actually see the Light Fury for the first time. And I really do love their interactions with each other, and Toothless has such a comedic tone in this film, just with his interactions with her. Obviously, they do the normal thing when animals interact, when they like walk around each other and then sniff each other. And obviously, she runs away in this first encounter because Hiccup makes a noise, and she just disappears. She fires a plasma blast and flies into it, and then she's just gone. Because what we didn't know is Night Furies have the ability to go invisible, and Toothless's ability does manifest going out for this movie, but he has to develop it, and that is stuff that's shown through later scenes. So yeah, she's gone now, and the Vikings pack up all their stuff from Berg, and they flee Berg, heading towards what they think is the hidden world. Yeah, and the hidden world does exist. We do find out that exists, but this was Grimmel's plan all along. He wanted them to leave. He wanted them to be vulnerable, so if they're in the air or if they're in a less defensible position, it was easier for him to attack, easier for him to take Toothless, easier for him to get what his eventual end goal was, which was to wipe out the Night Furies. So they make up camp on something, island which they call Newburgh, even though it was a temporary place. And Toothless goes on his first date, quote unquote, with the Light Fury. And this is what Dean DeBlois was saying in the interviews before the film came out, that they had a forbidden friendship scene in this film. And this is definitely what this is, because it does end obviously with Toothless doing a drawing like he does in the first film. And I really do like this scene. Just it doesn't even need dialogue, and it doesn't have dialogue because obviously it's two dragons interacting with each other. It's just completely. It's obviously they have the noises of the dragons, but it's just a completely. You watch it, and you get the comedic effect from it, and it's so well shot and so well done, and animation looks amazing in this film. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't win any awards for best animation because it is an amazing animation style and is up there with like movies like Into the Spider-Verse and of other animated films, maybe Incredibles 2. I couldn't tell you the best ones, but yeah. Um, he ends up having in this interaction with the Night Fury, and she plays hard to get at first. She doesn't really know what to do, and he is weird, to be honest. It's like Toothless is taking advice from Hiccup, and he's doing like different hand gestures and different like things to show him what he's supposed to be doing. Toothless copies it, and she ends up beating him on the nose and telling him, "No, don't do that." And after he eventually completely just gets sand in her face, she sneezes and just runs away and goes and does what the Night Furies do and hides on the tree like a bat. And Toothless, being Toothless, follows her, and he climbs along the top of the tree, looks at her at the end of the tree, points with his wing at the Light Fury, and looks at Hiccup, and is like, should I go over there and talk to her? And he actually ends up jumping up and down on the tree, and ends up collapsing the tree, and ends up sending her flying, himself and herself flying towards the ground. And this scene culminates in Toothless doing a drawing of her face, and like the scene where if she steps on the sand, he growls at her. Even though it doesn't quite work for me, it doesn't quite land as well as it did in the first film, obviously, because she has the power in this situation, because he wants to be with her, whereas Hiccup wanted to be with Toothless in the situation in the first film. So the reason why that scene worked better is because Hiccup had to be proved to Toothless that he could trust him, and that was his way of doing it by making it through the maze that he did. But Hiccup did, yes, he did reference the first thing he did, because he's like, oh yeah, now he can draw. But it didn't quite land as well. It was still a really good scene. I can't really fault it, but I just think it didn't land as well in the sense because she stepped on the line. He growled at her, then she growled back at him, and he backs down right away. So it doesn't really work the same way as it did in the first film, but I guess you could say the entirety of the scene as a whole was like the proving of that he could trust him from the first film. It was just on a larger scale. So it's however you really want to interpret it, really. So yeah, that was a good scene. Um, and this then Toothless tries to fly after her when she flies away, and he can't, which then inspires Hiccup to make him a tail, which looks like a Night Fury tail and allows him to fly on his own, which is something that Toothless hasn't wanted before. And if you saw the animated short from 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, he did, or 2011, I think it was even, Gift of a Night Fury. Toothless gets given a tail to allow him to fly so he could migrate to the island where the dragons go to breed. And he doesn't want it, he rejects it. And Hiccup actually references that in this film and says that last time I did this, he didn't want it. And it's like, well, yeah, he didn't have a reason to want it last time. Now he wants to go and meet the Light Fury. So, yeah, Hiccup makes a tail and Toothless goes off on his second date with the Light Fury. And this is where Toothless's powers begin to manifest. Like, we knew he had. There was a theory from like ages ago that Night Furies are some relatives of the Skrills, which are dragons which can shoot electricity, like they generate electricity inside their body. And this kind of adds to that theory because in this scene, they fly into a thunderstorm, and she's trying to teach him how to go invisible like she does, how she fires the plasma blast and just flies into it. Instead, what Toothless does is he gathers electricity like a lightning coil and uses the electricity to turn himself invisible. So that is a really interesting power, and that is something he's never been able to do before. So yeah, that's another thing, like Dean DeBlois saying that he wanted to do a trilogy where you see the characters growing, and each film, Toothless learns to do something. Obviously, in the first film, it's learning to fly within your tail. Second film, he learns how to like fly a little bit faster with the things that Valka gives him, where she grabs down his spine, and obviously he unlocks his quote-unquote alpha mode when he tries to protect him from the to Hiccup from the Bewilderbeast. And then in this film, he learns how to go invisible. So yeah, Toothless then goes off with the Light Fury, and they go to the hidden world, and Hiccup naturally gets worried because he hasn't seen Toothless in days, and he feels like he's nothing without Toothless. And that inspires him to go looking for Toothless, even though he probably shouldn't have done. But he ends up going looking for Toothless, and they find the hidden world. Him, Astrid, and Stormfly find the hidden world, and we see that Toothless has actually become the king. Obviously, we knew he was the king of the dragons going into this, but like he's on like you could call it a throne of sorts with the Light Fury, and I really do like the way they look together on screen. It looks so cute. But yeah, they're all together. You even see the Bewilderbeast from the second film. Like I like that world building and continuity to show how the Bewilderbeast even that follows Toothless now. And they're watching and they end up falling down, and Toothless knows it's Hiccup right away, which I love that detail. And he flies all the way through the dragons and takes Hiccup out, and he leaves the hidden world. And Toothless, you can see the look on his face that he is completely distraught, that he had to leave him, the person or the dragon that he loves, to save Hiccup, and he goes back with him, and this is where the climax of the film happens. And one thing I will say about this film, there's no downtime. They go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and everything leads to something. That is something I will praise the film for. No, not a second of this film is wasted. So yeah, after that we see that the Night Fury actually followed Toothless back to where they're hiding out, and we find that Ruff, who had previously been captured by Gremmel, I forgot to mention that because they did another raid on Gremmel to try and find out his plans and such. And she comes back and is like, "Wait, how did they let you go? How did he let you go?" It's like, "Oh, he just let me go and he gave me the dragon too." It's like, "Did he follow you?" And he did. He followed him. He took, and whilst Toothless was running towards the Light Fury, she takes her out, and he takes Toothless out, and now he's got the last two Night Furies in all of like anywhere. And this culminates in the final fight scene, which is some of the best like things I've seen in an animated movie. This final fight scene is so good, and leading into the final scene as well, which I'll talk about in a second. But this final fight scene with Hiccup taking on all of the things, and this is where all of the payoff with the Light Fury and Hiccup comes to a head because Gremmel takes the Light Fury and says, "Let's see who he follows now." Because obviously Hiccup was going after Toothless, and he was saying if Toothless was going to follow the Light Fury, if he could stay with Hiccup. And his plan the entire time was to see his trust, who he trusts, his trust in the Light Fury. So basically, Toothless is falling towards the ground, and he frees her. He lets Gremmel off of her, and he ends up falling towards the ground. And he whispers in his ear, "Save him." And she ends up saving Toothless and brings him up. And then, whilst he's falling in slow motion as well, she flies down and saves him. And we get the scene like we did with Toothless, how she like bends her neck down and looks at him and smiles and then saves him. Oh god, I love this movie so much. Yeah, she ends up saving him and drops him off, and this is where the final fight scene happens. Not final fight scene, sorry. The final, like, one final end scene, basically, between Hiccup and Toothless happens. And I love the dialogue in this scene, it's so well written, and it makes, yeah, it is a heavy scene. Um, he tells Toothless that he's looked after them for so long, it's time that Toothless looks after himself and that is going with the Light Fury and building a life with her. And Toothless at first doesn't want to go, but he ends up leaving with the Light Fury and all the rest of the dragons, going back to the Hidden World, and that's where they're safe. And that's, well, it's not the last time that they see each other. They see each other one last time, which we do see in this film. And that is also one of my favorite parts of the film. But the next scene we get is of Hiccup and Astrid getting married, and I really do like this scene. Everything is great. So I'm not sure what song it was from the score. I haven't looked all the way through the score of the film, but the score of the film complements the film so well. Um, and fighting happened that it's been built up through from the films to the extended universe and the TV shows that they were going to get married, and they eventually do get married at the end of this film. And that's why I think this film wraps up the trilogy so well. Like, there isn't a loose end you could possibly think of that's left. Like, especially even at the end of this film, they see Hiccup and Toothless see each other one last time. Because we get flash forward actually to Hiccup, and he's now an older man. I'm not sure exactly how old he is. He has a beard and he has Astrid and he has two kids. And he's sat on a fishing boat on the edge of the Hidden World. And we see Toothless with his family on the edge of the Hidden World. And I want to believe that it is Toothless could sense Hiccup there, and that's why he brought his family up there to like almost like introduce him. But you could also argue against that as well because at first it doesn't look like Toothless recognizes him. So you can argue either way there, but this scene is so well done and it's so heartwarming. You see Toothless and his family with Hiccup was riding. I think it's with his son. He's riding Toothless, and the baby Light Furies and Night Furies are flying alongside them, and obviously the Light Furies are as well. And then obviously Astrid is riding on Stormfly, and that is where the film ends. And it ends with Hiccup's monologue, as every film has ended with Hiccup's monologue of him talking, saying that the dragons disappeared, only a few know where they went, and the Burkians know better, and they will keep their secret, guard the secret until the time is ready for the dragons to return. And that is where the film ends, and that is the perfect ending for this film. Even though I honestly thought somebody was going to die in this film, you could kind of make an argument Gremmel might have died, but yes, what a way to end this film. And then, even then, in the credit scenes, it continues to be perfect in how it gives you um, a recap of the previous two films with the song Together from Afar. Jonesy just continues to do a good job with these end scrolls. She had Sticks and Stones in the first one, Where No One Goes in the second one, and now Together from Afar. And Together from Afar is a perfect song to put with the end credit scene, and especially with the lyrics and stuff. I'll put a link to the song in the description below as well, so you guys can listen to it if you haven't before. So yeah, I love this film so much. I can't fault it in any way. It's easily the best film in the trilogy, and yeah, go see it if you haven't seen it. Even though I probably just spoiled the entirety of the movie for you, but still, go support the film. I'm surprised. I am gonna put spoilers in the title of this video, so I was really surprised if people still clicked on this video even though it says spoilers. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. Your support is very much appreciated, and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.